This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, my name is Chad Thies. I'm the president of Zell Human Resources. I want to thank you for taking time to watch the 4x2 Conversations demo today. Some of you that are watching this for the first time, your company's already decided to implement this process, and I congratulate you and your company for choosing something that's incredibly unique and different, and hopefully it'll be fun. And for those of you considering it, I hope as you watch this today, you'll see why this works and why organizations that choose to use this not only like the process, but it makes profound differences within their organization. So without further ado, I'm going to get started on this presentation. And I always think it's important to start with a case study and show metrics that drives change within organizations. And this is how this whole process started and why organizations use it today. So I want to start with a case study about a local organization that we worked with that had about 900 employees, a little more than that, and they used a traditional process for 30 plus years. Now, this is dating us back now about 8 years, but this organization, using this traditional process in 2009, 2010, you'll see here these numbers within their HRS system. About half of the employees in this organization were getting reviews completed. So that there in itself was a fundamental flaw that managers disliked this process so much they just elected not to do the reviews. So I wanted further statistics to figure out, is this working or not for the people that are getting reviews done. You will see here on this bell curve that this organization rated people on a 4-point scale: unsuccessful, developing, successful, and outstanding. Now, I do need to say this organization is one of the best organizations that I've ever worked with. Nonetheless, you would think in an organization of over 900 people, there'd be at least 1 or 2 unsuccessful people, but not here. You had 6% developing, and in the sample size here, you're looking at about 700 on this employee side. So you get 6% developing, and if I am selecting 200 plus people a year for this organization, more people are probably going to be developing employees. They're still learning their roles. 88% were successful, and 6% were outstanding. The next slide shows the manager stats. This is about 215-ish people. So again, very similar to the employee base, where you had 0 unsuccessful managers, 4% developing, roughly 78% successful, and 18% outstanding. Again, great numbers, but not very realistic. And the next slide shows you why. This is an overlap of the manager and the employee. Again, over that 2-year period, we had 0 unsuccessful employees. But in that 2-year period, this organization involuntarily terminated 28 people. That's a really pretty good number for that size of an organization, but nonetheless, I thought to myself, I wonder what those ratings were for those individuals who were rated unsuccessful or developing, outstanding and successful, the ones that got terminated. Lo and behold, every single person that was terminated involuntarily was rated successful or outstanding. So again, another big aha, realizing something is not working in this process. So Zell set out to do more benchmarking results. We're onto something here. We think we've created a reason to change why these processes don't work. So what we did was research literally hundreds of different companies to find out what do they do that works. Some organizations use a balanced scorecard approach where it cascades down from the CEO on down. Some, but very few, used a coaching guide, but almost 98% of the companies we spoke with used a traditional review process. So what did the results show us from the research that we did? What did peers like about the traditional performance review process? It is a tool for feedback. It can provide a roadmap for goals and expectations. The side to the right there has 7 bullet points. This could have been 30. What we did was listen for themes and condense that to the ones that we heard the most feedback on. So what did they like the most? The forms and processes in general. Time consuming. We talked to numbers of people who would spend enormous amounts of time on the review process. Some people, and this is the plural form, would spend 1 day per 1 review in preparation for their feedback session. Now imagine if this manager has 5 employees, that's a week's worth of productivity gone. 10 employees, 2 weeks worth of productivity gone. And we had some managers that literally had 15 or more employees that reported to them, and they would spend an entire day prepping for their review. And the only thing that happened, unfortunately, was it was regurgitation from the year before usually, and the employee walked out with their head down, unhappy about what they heard. Routine for long-term employees, they hear the same thing year after year after year. Either, yeah, you're doing a good job, Chad, or Chad, you need to work on these things. Okay, great, thanks. Very inconsistent. One of my favorite bullet points is fear of proper rating. So imagine that an organization uses a 1 to 5 scale or a UDSO scale or 1 to 10 scale, whatever it is. So if I'm not a 10 out of 10 or a 5 out of 5, I'm going to immediately think something I'm doing is wrong. Now, let's say that I get an 8 out of 10, and I go back to my manager and say, gosh, I thought I was doing such a good job. I met all my goals and expectations. In fact, I exceeded most of them. The manager might say, well, Chad, I don't give 9s or 10s. Well, I got an 80%. That's a C minus if you're looking at it in the grade point scale. So again, people are being hurt morale-wise by giving a number attached to them because people aren't rating them right. And the flip side is, I don't want to just deal with Chad. Chad's a problem employee. I'm just going to rate him really good because I don't really care. What kind of good can that do for Chad or the organization? And the biggest bullet point of all, training is needed on how to have conversations. They just need help, both managers and employees, in how to have constructive, transparent conversations. Now, I'm a big quote person, and if you were to Google or use a search media engine to find out more about reviews and if you look for quotes, they're all going to be largely bad. But I'll just read the first one here. Second only to firing an employee, the thing managers dislike the most is performance appraisals. This is understandable given that the process of the performance appraisal, as traditionally practiced, is fundamentally flawed. And I couldn't agree more with that. The second quote there, too, if you get a chance to read that. This is what you see here from individuals and organizations. Performance appraisals don't work traditionally, and they're not doing anything for morale, for communication, for engagement, and things like that. So what did our case study show us? What were our conclusive results? Everyone seemed to strongly dislike performance appraisals. And that's saying it nicely. The value was not seen for time and effort put into the process. There was no evidence that reviews were affecting performance. I mean, why do we do these then? People weren't. So managers and employees were just avoiding doing reviews. So overall, the traditional performance process, we don't think works. So what's the solution? After 2 years of research, what did we have to do to make sure a process would work? Well, we knew we needed to create something that was simple and efficient. Most organizations we spoke with would re-engineer the process to add more questions to it to try to make it better. Their intentions are really, really good, but what they were doing was making it worse and making it harder. We knew we wanted to create something that would create a culture of transparency between the manager and their employee. We want to promote open communications at all levels throughout any organization. Again, we want to hit the easy button over and over again, something easy for managers, something easy for employees. Less time consuming, less structured. Let's create some accountability for employees and let them invest in their company, let them drive the review process. Wanted to create more access to have these conversations done at any time versus, a certain 2-week window. And something ultimately that keeps employees on track, motivated, and engaged. Again, that's the reason for doing these, is to keep employees on track, motivated, and engaged. So what was our solution after 2 years? It's kind of laughable, really, that we came up with 4 questions twice a year, but I tell you it works, and it works great. Our first question is, what are your most important accomplishments since we last met? Again, this is an opportunity to highlight what you did over the last 6 months. We're not looking for 20 bullet points here or 3 pages of notes. But when you reflect back on your last 6 months, what were the things that you did that affected your job the most, your department the most, your division the most, and your organization the most? Highlight those. Think about those. What were they? Focus on tasks or projects that made the biggest difference. Second questions lead into that one, but I'll follow up with some kind of examples of what this looks like. So, for example, most of the work that we do in the 4x2 process is with financial institutions, and there's dozens of others outside of financial institutions as well. But a lot of us being former bankers at Zelle, we like to use banking examples. So, for example, some of those things could be: I had no offages the last 6 months. I had accurate balancing. I had great product discussion with customers, knowing the products to best serve the customer. I know them all, and I know them pretty well. Rep payee accounts. I learned how to process this accurately when customers come in. Maybe I attended a conference to grow my current role, and I came back and shared that knowledge with my employees. Maybe I promoted from my current role to a new position. Maybe I stayed in my position that I was in and keep doing a good job. I decreased the number of errors in documentation. I met performance expectations to move off a performance improvement plan. It means some people are going to be on performance improvement plans. They don't want to be on those, so they worked hard to get off that. That's a great goal. I improved my relationship with Chad. Again, these are behavioral too. We don't want people not to think they can't use these for relationship purposes as well, because relationships drive success at work too. So there are times when people don't get along with their employees, but they need to try their hardest to do that. So this is another good example of improving a relationship. Why is that not a good goal? It's a great goal. Maybe I cross-trained in different jobs with different departments. Gain more knowledge on the ATM process, transaction processing, things like that. Maybe added $5, $10, $15 million in good credits to my loan portfolio. Maybe I coached employees on versatility to better communicate within their team. Again, these are great examples of what goals could be that impact the department, the division, and the organization as a whole. Second question is a follow-up from the first question. So now I'm thinking ahead to the next 6 months. What are the most important things you will accomplish before our next meeting? So we're thinking ahead now to the next 6 months. What am I going to be working on that's going to make the biggest difference? Again, we're not asking people to list everything here, just the things that are going to make the biggest difference, again, for them, the department, the organization as a whole. So again, thinking ahead, and these are fun to reflect back on too, because it does create goals that you want to accomplish. And remember, as I'm talking about these, the employee is the one capturing all this to share with their manager. So there's a huge investment on the employee's part to come up with goals they think they can achieve and hit and make a big difference on. Some examples, these are examples, just the same ones we used last time, exact same ones. So I'm not going to read all those to you, but again, other examples could be the exact same ones you have from month to month to month or the next 6 months. People ask us all the time, Chad, I'm in a role that's very common every day. I do the same thing every day. And what we've found is people that have roles that are pretty consistent every day have the most to say. This is why. They have a lot of great ideas on how to improve processes, to make things more seamless, to save money in certain areas. They just need an outlet to tell somebody that. The third question, what challenges are you facing today? I love this question. So what's keeping you from performing at your peak? I want to know that. Is it a tough time prioritizing things? Is there lack of communication between you and someone you work with? It's important to let our managers know what challenges we're facing. We all want to perform at our best. We all want to have fun at work. We spend a lot of time, energy, and effort at work. Let's help our managers know how we can best do the job by letting them know how they can help us. Some examples. Communication. I got an issue with my team. I think there's one person dragging us down on that team, and whoever that is. A tough question often can be, my biggest challenge is you as my manager. I feel like you micromanage me. I feel like nothing I do is working. Nothing I do is right. That's a really tough question to have. That's why the training that we give teaches people how to have these conversations. But again, those things are come up from time to time, not often, but we all know the number one reason people leave their organizations is because their manager first. So that might be a tough conversation you have to have, but I'd tell you what, being able to have this outlet to do that makes a huge difference. Maybe detecting fraud. In banks, that's a huge, huge deal that we continue to have challenges with and will continue to have challenges with. Cash back, verifying identity. Maybe it's processes, procedures, consistency, the follow-through, things like that. How often should we meet? That's a really big one. If you're a person like me, I don't like to meet rarely ever. Some people like to meet every day. What works best for that individual? If they're a peak performer, let them guide you to decide that. Technology always changes, so technology is going to be one that's off and on there. It's a challenge. Product knowledge. In any industry, we're constantly have to learn about new products. Difficult customer scenarios. We all have customer situations where we want to make sure we're making the customer feel good and doing everything we can to deliver excellent service. But you know what? Sometimes no matter what we do, that customer might not be happy. So for example, here is telling a customer that they are negative in their account and have NSF fees owed to the bank. That's a tough conversation to have, and hopefully that customer will take it well because we're just doing our job. But again, that's a challenge. It's not easy to have that conversation. The last question, what can I do to help you be your best? So again, it's important to let our managers know what they can do to help us be our best. Do you need a little more guidance on a project that has been assigned to you? Do you need more frequent interaction with them, just to touch base? Do you need less interaction with them? If so, it's your chance to let them know. Again, we all report to somebody. The only answer we don't like on questions 3 and 4 is nothing, because that's not an accurate answer. We all have challenges, and we all have things we can say that'll help us be better employees. So some examples of this might be communication. I like to be communicated with in person or on the phone. I'm not a big email person, but a lot of people are. So again, it's important to know the versatility and knowing an individual's style. I mentioned frequency meetings before. Transparency and expectations. Again, how does someone define success? We all want to do a good job. At least I hope we all want to do a good job. But I want to know from my manager's expectations, what are they from his or her expectations to know I'm doing a good job? If there's a perceived issue, let me know. I don't want to harbor ill feelings if I don't know I'm not doing a good job. I want to know if I'm doing a good job and a bad job. Please tell me. So some examples for that. So this is how the process works. Manager schedules the 4x2 conversations meeting. The employee and manager separately complete questions. So again, I love that because for the first time they come together, they haven't seen their questions. Again, the employee's driving the conversation. They can lead the conversation and go first. Manager's going to have the questions done too. They get to come together and talk about the questions together, which is really impactful and a ton of fun. So the employee and manager meet and discuss the questions. So oftentimes the manager is going to say, well, those are great goals. Wow, I wouldn't change anything. Or they might say, you know what, those goals are a little too high, don't you think? Should we adjust those a little bit? And sometimes they might say, you know what, let's add to this too. But great job. So employee captures notes for the meeting and signs off. Manager makes additional notes if needed and signs off. Now we have a platform that we have a webinar on as well that you're going to be able to see. But this is part of that process too. We're not going to get into that right now. So our case study, the conclusion, after adopting and utilizing the 4x2 conversations process, what did the results show us? Again, there are dozens of organizations that use this process. And every organization either at or really close to 100% participation in their organization. Now, some people will say, what if people don't want to contribute to the process? Well, I would say, well, manage them to make sure that they do, first and foremost. Well, let's say the person's been there 45 years and they are set in their ways. Well, you know what? Or they just don't want to do it. I always tell people, and some organizations have done this, well, everybody likes a merit increase or a bonus. Let's don't give it to them unless they complete this. Because once they do it once, they're really going to enjoy it and think it's actually really easy, not too bad. There's a couple asterisks in the next 2 bullet points. Again, I think metrics drive change and make things real. Now, you'll see here, a lot of organizations do engagement surveys, and organizations have adopted this process have seen huge spikes in employee and manager communication and overall engagement in the workplace. Very real, raw numbers there. Employees have stated that they look forward to the conversations and receiving feedback from their managers, and likewise, managers have said, you know what, this process is actually pretty fun. I like it, it's simple, it's easy, and it's effective. That's what we hear time and time and time again. So why, if you're not already using this process, should you use the 4x2 conversations process? Or if your organization is using it now, this is why. As simple as it is, it's innovative. It's refreshing. It's 4 questions twice a year. That is innovative. It is refreshing. It does differentiate you from your competition. It will improve communication. It allows employees to have ownership and accountability in their own goals. It reduces time significantly. It's simple. It's simple, simple, simple. I can't say it enough. There's no rating system. I love that because who am I to rate somebody else? It creates transparency on both the employee and the manager and the organization as a whole. and it will increase motivation, and it will increase engagement. Any questions at all about this process? Again, if you're currently using it, or if you're thinking about using it, please contact me. My name's Chad. Steph Honest is on here too. She's our Director of Consulting. And Jake McMullen, who works heavily with the 4x2 process. We all love emails. Those two more than me. I like phone calls better, but I'll happily take emails too. So please call us, please email us. We are passionate about this process, this journey with work, and we believe in the ability for cultures to continually improve. And this is one thing that's holding organizations back, but if you choose something different, it can help move you forward. So again, thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.